Thanks for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. Here are your hosts, Andrew Hofer and Tom Sigel.
Welcome to the latest episode of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. I'm Tom Sigel, a field ambassador in our area, and our area director here, Andrew Hofer. And we're excited to get back with it. We have a great guest on today. I've probably known him since sometime before high school. He's originally from Rock Falls, now at Abiding Word Church in Sterling, Scott Porter. And the interesting angle that I think we take today is the connection between sports and faith, because as a pastor, I've always known him to be, and obviously has not shied away from being heavily rooting interests in athletics and sports teams, and that connection, and kind of get his perspective on it.
Yeah, again, I think we keep up the trend of unique perspectives and hearing from Pastor Scott about how sports and faith kind of intermix and intermingle, and why they can be why they kind of gel so well together. So really intrigued to hear his points of view, and I know that you've had a connection with him for a long time now, so I'm sure he might have a story or two to share along the way too.
He might, and hopefully they're good ones. I'm sure they will be. But also, my guess is with, unfortunately, I don't know if I've ever actually heard a sermon, but I have been at a service that he's done for a young man, but mixing in the sports into the sermons. I'm sure his congregation is well aware of his fandom, so it'll be fun to talk to him. He'll
Yeah,
be real engaging, and we're excited to have him.
yeah, and we'll hear from him on why not only why sports mean so much in our society, but then why they can be a launching pad for discipleship. So I think it's a really good opportunity to hear from a unique perspective of it. So we have uh, Scott Porter coming up here next on the Three Rivers Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA podcast.
Welcome back to Inside the Huddle, and we are excited to have Scott Porter with us from Abiding Word Church in Sterling, Illinois. And I mentioned in the intro, I've known him for a long time. Probably didn't know him when you were a Montmorency Mountie. We talked about that off the air here. But then Rock Falls Rockets
Yeah.
from back then, and knowing your brothers as well and your family. So we're excited to have you on and talk some faith and some sports and the combination of those things. So welcome. Glad to have you on.
Thank you so much. Two of my favorite subjects.
Well, Pastor, thank you for joining us. And as we get going here, we're just going to kind of dive in a little bit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in becoming a Christian, and then also as a pastor?
Yes. I was born in Dixon and lived there till I was 4 years old. We went to church at the Lincoln Avenue Church of God, Anderson, Indiana. And I knew when, as a 7-year-old, watching my pastor, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. Not me thinking that. If you would have asked me when I was 7, what do you want to be? I would have said, I want to be a lawyer and be president of the United States, because that's what Abe Lincoln was, and he was my hero. And I want to be like Abe. But I knew in my heart, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. And I kind of ran from it through my teen years. I mean, I was president of my youth group at church and everything. I was a good kid. I was kind of a hypocrite, not really living my faith the way I should have. But my junior year in high school at Rock Falls, I rededicated my life to the Lord. I've been living for the Lord ever since. And that was the first Sunday a new girl came to our church named Terry LaFavor, who's now been my wife of 41 and a half years. And I met her back then, and we started dating when we were 16. But I became, a Christian at 9 and rededicated my life at 16. Then went to Sauk for a year. And this is at a point where I was kind of pushing, because I was still going to do the lawyer president thing, or business at least. I was accepted to Northern. I was going to Sauk Valley Community College, going to Northern, a business degree. I was going to go into Chicago, make a boatload of money, come back here, run for Congress, and let's see what happens. That was my plan. But I went to a Christian workers convention. I've got the Bible up here. And a man from inner city Philadelphia, a black man named Horace Shepherd, Reverend Horace Shepherd, was a pastor. And he signed in Bibles for young people afterwards, go with God, maybe a favorite scripture and then sign it. He's laughing with these 3 or 4 guys. I'm a person who always waits his turn. I'm not a jump in and butt in line. And I came up and said, "Brother Shepherd, would you sign my Bible?" And he snatched it from me and glared at me. And I'm thinking, wow, I wasn't expecting that. This is when I'm 18. He starts writing in it. He goes, "So you're going to be a preacher, huh?" And I'm thinking, I never said I was going to be a preacher. That's what I'm thinking. And he takes it and he shoves the Bible into my chest. And he looked up at me because he was a little guy. He said, "The Lord said, don't even think about it." He turned around and walks off. I'm thinking, wow, what a jerk. He's playing ha-ha with all these guys and he's yelling at me. And I opened the Bible and he had written, "Since you're going to be a preacher, never stoop to run for president of the United States, Forrest Shepherd." And so it was just, for me, that was just Lord speaking to me through Brother Shepherd. You have a higher calling than president. Not that that isn't a high calling, but preaching the gospel's more important. And so that kind of clinched it for me. And I got married on my 20th birthday, and my wife and I moved to Tulsa, where I went to Rainbow Bible Training College. And then from there, I went on, I got my master's and doctorate through Life Christian University online and did all that good stuff. And I've been pastoring now. This May will be 40 years at Abiding Word Church. So,
Wow.
well, here we are.
Quite a story.
Yeah.
Well, switching gears from that just a little bit, because like we said, we're kind of tying this together. Know you're a big sports fan. What are some of the background that way? I mean, as far as what sports you participated in, any thoughts that sometime you're going to go pro in any of those?
No.
Or also like teams that you kind of follow, share it with everybody.
My joke was the only thing I do other than pastor is play center field for the Cubs one summer, but there's been no offers. But when I was a kid, I played Little League in Rock Falls at Wallingford Park. I was on the Indians, which we weren't good. We were not good. I made All-Stars one year. My brother Mark was catcher, my big brother Mark, who was a basketball star. And I was okay. I was kind of a singles guy, punched the ball, but I was hustled, ran everything I had. If I wasn't dirty at the end of the game, I'd roll around the infield. My mom would be yelling at me. How about that? But growing up, I loved baseball and basketball and football. In high school or in grade school, I played 5th and 6th grade basketball. I was diagnosed as type 1 diabetic when I was 9. And so that really physically kind of hindered me in some ways at that point. So 7th and 8th grade, I was a manager. In high school, I was a trainer under Skip Lee, who was started a great athletic training program at Rock Falls. And so my sophomore year, I did that. That was when my brother Mark was a senior. So I got to kind of travel around with my brother. He went on to play at Iowa Wesleyan for 4 years. And then he just retired from coaching, just like Coach Todd there, right around the same time. And so I've always been a Cubs fan, Chicago Cubs, my top team, Chicago Bulls, Blackhawks, but I've always been a Green Bay Packer fan. I'm not a bandwagon.
Oh, Andrew.
That's good.
But ever since my dad's a hillbilly from Virginia, okay? And he lived in a place called Chilhowie, Virginia. And up the road, 30 miles, was a place called Wise, Virginia. And there was a man there named Carroll Dale that went to church with my aunt and uncle. He played on Lombardi's Packers. He was in the Ice Bowl. He played in the first 2 Super Bowls. He caught the first touchdown in the first Super Bowl, but he got called back on a procedure penalty or something. They still show it in the highlight video. Number 84, and good Christian man. And I got to talk to him on the phone years ago as well and talk to him about his faith and what have you. But that's how our whole family became Packers fan. So there was a lot of lean years, Bears fans today. My whole childhood was how things have been up until now. The 70s, 80s for Packers were not good. I had a couple good players in there, but those were my teams growing up.
Yep. And Andrew's a Packers fan, so he was happy to hear that.
There's no problem.
I'm a stockholder. This is my share of stock right behind me, right there.
Well,
oh, okay.
I'm part owner of the Green Bay Packers. Thank you very much.
There you go. So, I mean, that kind of goes along with the next question kind of goes along with that. Like, what are some of your favorite, you've been involved in a lot of sports, both locally and around the country. Like, what are some of your favorite moments sports wise?
Couple real quick, and then two I'll go in a little more detail. The '90s Bulls, of course, Jordan and those guys, that was insane. The three Blackhawk Stanley Cups. The Packers won. Well, they won the first two Super Bowls. I don't remember them. I was too small. But then the two Super Bowls with Favre and Aaron Rodgers, that was great. Then the two that I was at, first one, 1999, Rock Falls Rockets winning state championship in Peoria, which one of the hosts was there that night too. That was just, people ask me what that was like to win at a three-pointer just before the buzzer. I said, it was like 2,000 people being set on fire at the same time, and you're trying to put each other out. We're just jumping on each other and going berserk. But then after that was the 2016 World Series. I was at Game 7 in Cleveland. And that will be a night when I'm 100 years old, sitting in a rocking chair, just grinning, and my wife will say, he's thinking about it again. Every so often I start smiling, and she goes, you're thinking about it, aren't you? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that had to have been special. We don't need to get into what the ticket might have cost. We won't go there, but it may have been worth it. It may have been worth it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was so totally worth it.
Yeah.
It was so totally worth it, because that'll be something I've always been if you have an opportunity to do something like that, just do it, because you got one shot, and the Cubs were terrible most of my life. I had a couple glimmers here, 84, 89, 03. I was there the night they won the pennant against the Dodgers in 2016. And I'm standing there going into the ninth inning, and I'm surrounded by millennials. And this young lady taps me on the shoulder. She's sitting beside me the whole game. She goes, "Are you doing okay, sir?" And I said, "Well, in 84, we were 7 outs away from the World Series. In 03, we were 5 outs away. Tonight, we're 3 outs away. This is the closest I've ever been." And she patted my arm and said, "It's going to be okay." And I want to say to her, you don't understand.
Yeah.
You
don't jinx it now. Be quiet.
Whole life, with this team. And Game 7 was right there, and then it was gone, which was the life of a Cubs fan. But then we rallied and won it, and what a night. That was fun.
Well, those are some good ones.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, and I don't know what the perception is out there of, well, somebody who stands up there every Sunday, man of God. I don't, what that correlation and that crossover that, hey, it is okay to root. I mean, the pastor that we had here, he's a Packers fan because he's from Wisconsin, and he would always refer to that as God's country up there. Ooh. So, big Packers fan. So for any listeners, what's your take on the way that those two correlate and intermix and the positives with that?
Years ago, a lady came up to me in a grocery store at County Market in Sterling. So this was, my daughters were little. So they're 37, 34, and 32 now. But when they were little girls, were in the grocery store. I had a pair of shorts on, t-shirt, Cubs cap. "Well, you're Reverend Porter, aren't you? I recognize your voice," because I did radio back then. I said, she goes, "Whoa, you have a Cubs cap on. You're not supposed to take sides." I said, "Where'd you hear that?" So I've never cared. I never have cared what people have thought about that. If I'm doing something, I want to be a good witness to people. I don't want to be out doing something ungodly or anything, but those are my teams, what have you. And another fun thing is, I'm a guy from Rock Falls pastoring in Sterling. I have a little.
If you know, you know.
Oh yeah. If you don't, you don't understand. But every so often back in the day, because now they don't play in football anymore, and this year they're not even playing in basketball, so it's kind of taken all my fun away. But every so often, I would say that people would ask me, "How can a guy from Rock Falls pastor in Sterling?" I says, "Well, God called me as a missionary to a heathen land." and at that time, Jerry Bender, who was the principal of Sterling High School, was a member of our church and on the board, and he'd just be back there going like, "Oh." I just, it's kind of like they used to say about Ronald Reagan. He would just say something and wink and wiggle his ears, and it was okay. If you say it with humor, you're not being ugly about it or mean or anything like that, because I've never been like that. When the Bears beat the Packers this year, I mean, 3 games come down to the last play. When's that ever happened in Packer Bear season? I go on Facebook. Congratulations to all my Bear fan friends. Enjoy the ride, because that's what the playoffs are. It's a ride, and it might end next week. And for them, it did, unfortunately for them. But I'm not a hater of other teams, except maybe the Mets. But that was 1969. I was a kid, so.
Well, I suppose maybe is there a little pressure on though if you're at a game or maybe like a Rock Falls game or somewhere local of official makes a bad call, like
Yeah,
little restraint.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can remember walking, because my daughters were all 3 Sterling High School cheerleaders. And I'd go to all their games, football, basketball, cheer for Sterling, because those are my girls, and I'm cheering for their team. When they played Rock Falls, it'd usually be Saturday night during the New More Rockster tournament back in the day. And I'd get done with Saturday night service here. So I'm in a suit, my overcoat. I'd walk in during warm-ups, because service had just ended, and walk up on the Rock Falls side with my brother and my dad. And you could see everybody on the Sterling side looking at me. And I look down at my daughters and go, you're going down. And they'd be flipping their ponytails like. But my wife from Sterling sitting on this other side with my girls. We just had fun with it.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely.
Well,
It's all about your attitude in it. You just have fun with it, and just poke a little bit, have some fun, keep your heart right, which is how you should live your life as a Christian. Is your love walk determines. I've been preaching the last couple of weeks on faith. We're doing a 9-week series on it, on how faith worketh by love. And say, well, I got all this great faith. Well, if you don't have love, your faith don't work, because the word worketh is energeo. It's energized by love. And if you don't have love, your faith is not energized. It's not going to work. So you can talk about faith all you want. You have to walk in love towards folks.
well, I think
Great.
End of sermon.
within FCA, I mean, that we're using sports as a discipleship opportunity.
Absolutely.
And sports are wildly popular, not only locally here, but around the world. There's so many millions of students that are participating in a sport of some sort. Why do you think sports has become such a good discipleship opportunity? Especially when you're seeing like whole ministries like FCA, that's kind of our niche. That's our thing, is using that avenue of sports as a foot in the door, whether it's within the school setting, the non-campus setting, to be able to share Jesus' name through sport.
I think I've always looked at sports and faith going hand in hand. Now, do I believe that God's up in heaven blowing field goals to the left or to the right? No, I'm not into that. Yeah, I always used to think at the 99 state championship with Rock Falls and Waterloo Jabot, I mean, we're praying, and they're a Catholic school, so I'm sure they're praying, and and who's going to win? Well, that's up to the players on the field. But sports and faith go hand in hand. If you look in the Bible, look at David and Goliath. How often is that used in sports lore? Of the
Hoosiers.
Total David and Goliath. Milan, the Indiana, the school that actually did it, is a total David and Goliath story. You look at 1 Corinthians 9:24, which says, "Know ye not that they which run in a race win all, but one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain." That means run to win. If you're going to run, we're all running in the race, and one's receiving the prize. So what do? You run to win. So right there, I helped my brother Mark. He was in a college speech class, and he said, "Hey, is there anything in the Bible about?" And I threw him that verse, and he got an A in the speech. I think he thanked me for that. But it's about running to win, and how sports and faith go together. And when young people who many times become someone that people at the school look up to, and they're a man or a woman, a young man, young woman of faith, that's a wonderful opportunity to segue into telling people about Jesus and about how God's changed their life in a real way. And I mean, you have a platform like that, man, go for it. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. I mean, and I think Tom's going to touch on it here in a second. Like, we've seen athletes being much more prominent and bold in their faith recently. And Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint like why. Maybe it's because they have the platform or the realization that they do, but you're definitely seeing a
Mhm.
more prominence of that in the last several
Yeah,
years.
yeah. I always look back, some of the first ones I remember was, like, Reggie White,
Mhm.
back when, God told me to come to Green Bay, and that gravelly voice of his, and, um, and he just used that as a platform to start telling people about Jesus. But over the years, there've been many, many people, back to the one I told you about, Carol Dale, who played for the Packers, worked with, like a Fellowship of Christian Athletes type uh, organization back then, and did that a lot of that in the off season. And and now today's athletes, you see that as well. I saw it the other day. Um, which football was it? Was yesterday's football game? Uh,
Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, at the end of the
that
game
was it.
did.
Yeah, and he was. I like think Jesus Christ. They don't even say God anymore. When they drop the J bomb, I'm like, yeah, say it. Say
Hmm.
Jesus. Don't just do the thank God. Yeah, that's good. Man, say the word, say Jesus. He's the one who changed your life. He's the one that gives you the strength, the focus to do the things that you do. Because some of the things they do on the field, on the court, on the diamond, just blow my mind, and they're amazing. But uh, if they're men or women who put God first in their life with their families, their siblings, their spouse, what have you, that's all a plus.
Yeah. And I've always felt kind of touched on it there with the talents they have, the things that they're doing at that level. But even high school or whatever, the skill level, the fundamentals, whatever it is that you've worked on is kind of the reward of your work. But because you're talented is all God given. I mean, we've talked with our players about that. Like, oh, okay, you have talent, but you didn't do anything for that.
Right.
That was a gift. What are you going to do with that? Whatever your level is, work on your skills and those type of things, and your effort should always be there. So,
Absolutely.
um, along those lines, with a couple other guests we've had recently, and talking about that intersection of sport and athletes being bold. I think twice it's come up that they said they think that this is basically part of they're seeing a revival that it can lead to a revival with these athletes who are, millions of people watching, speaking out for Christ.
Yes.
Thoughts on that? Or
Yeah. Our youth group here at the church, I was the first when I first got here out of Bible college in '86. I was the assistant pastor, children's and youth pastor. I basically did everything the senior pastor didn't want to do. And uh I had youth group maybe 7, 10 kids. And I was so thankful for those kids. And there's still one of those young ladies in our church today. And her
oh,
daughter's on our worship team and in our youth group and all this stuff. And that just blesses me. But the youth group that we have now, Pastor Nathan Wright, who's a Rock Falls grad, he started drumming in our church when he was 14 years old. Now he's 37. And our youth group has just exploded. It started at our summer camp, summer scream camp that our worship pastor and our children's pastor, Doug and Aaron Kuzan, started 30 years ago. They meet down in Tennessee, Illinois. But summer scream camp, something happened there. Spirit of God moved on our young people, and it was with the young men. The young women were part of it, but a lot of times young women are more into things and more
mhm.
sensitive things. But our young men gra- just God grabbed their hearts, and these are kids from Rock Falls, Sterling, Dixon, Faith Christian. I mean, they're from all over the area, and because that's where folks come to our church, and so they came back on fire. And a lot of times, kids will come back from conventions or conferences or camps, and they're on fire. And then sometimes the adults throw a wet blanket on. And I've told our adults, I said, "Man, you throw a wet blanket on these kids, man, there's gonna be hellfire or something. Something not good gonna happen to you guys." But they came back and it spread. And then you had the whole Charlie Kirk situation.
Mm.
After that happened, things just started multiplying. And our youth group of 20 to 40 kids has gone up to 160 kids. On Wednesday night, we have middle schoolers, high schoolers here every Wednesday night, and they're from all over the Rock River Valley. And they come together and they worship and the great teaching and preaching. And last week, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, we had 33 people baptized. 19 of them were members of our youth group.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So my left shoulder is still a little sore. That. But it's just, and our church went from about 550 people to 650 to 750 and on up in a 2-month period. And there's just a revival started, and it started with the young people. And so it is, and it's not just at our church; it's happening all over the United States and in other parts of the world as well. God is really starting to move, and it started with the young people, and a lot of these young people are athletes, uh, Sterling football players, basketball players, Rock Falls, Dixon, Morrison. They're from all over the area, and it just. I said to our congregation, I've been waiting 40 years for a youth group like this.
Hmm.
And it's just phenomenal. And we give God all the glory for it. He's just really moving in their lives and changing their lives. And it's just electric.
That's outstanding.
I think that's something that we're seeing across the board too within FCA. Like our huddle numbers are just up like crazy this fall, and it's hard to explain or pinpoint, but God's moving in their hearts. And even in my local
Yeah.
church, we're seeing our numbers explode. And so,
Yeah.
and I agree with you that a lot of times it starts with the young people, and they're bringing that energy and that excitement. But one of the big things is like when I was in high school, I wasn't bold about my faith like they are, and
Yeah. No.
they're truly being disciple makers and talking to other people, their peers, and even people who
Mhm.
they don't even know. And so,
Yep.
that's they get an impactful experience, and then they invite someone else to come be a part of it. That's how discipleship starts, and it's truly special to see.
Do you have a group at Reagan Middle School
Oh yes, sir, we
in
do.
Dixon?
Yep.
Okay. I went to that group with Dolph Ricks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was Dolph?
I
And
golfed with Dolph this
Yeah.
summer. That rhymed, but
did you?
And that's one of the
yeah,
that's one
hadn't
of,
seen him in years.
that's one of the
He's a
huddles
Rock Falls baseball legend still.
that's one of the
And
huddles I think about though is that huddle's
yeah,
pushing
I
70
went to that. We
kids.
took donuts and juice and stuff, and it blew me away. Those young people, and a bunch of those kids are in our youth
Yep.
group, but I'd never been to that. And I went to it, and one of the kids did the Bible study, and another one prayed, and another they did this, and
Yep.
it's just so impressive. And I was tearing up.
Well,
I'm a crier.
2 years ago I went to the
But
Dixon High School huddle, and they had it was like 8 or
yeah.
9 kids. And that's like that's still something to be celebrated, that to get 8 or 9
Yes,
kids in there and
absolutely.
there and they're talking about Jesus in the school building. That's amazing. And now
Yeah.
this year, and then I went back to their junior high one, and they had 25, 30 kids. And now that's pushing 70. The high school's up to 30. And we're talking
There
about
you
doing it
go.
at the 4th and 5th grade levels. And it's just, God's really moving. And so
It's
like
amazing.
you can't point at any person because it's not any of us. It's just God
Well,
stirring hearts.
God is stirring hearts, but the cool thing is the young people are responding
Yeah.
to it, because we have kids coming in, they don't know the first thing about the Bible. They don't know Noah and the ark or any of that stuff. And so we're discipling. We're taking them from
Yeah.
there, because out of Wednesday night big rah-rah and games and all the fun, then we have the discipleship groups where they get together and they
Yeah.
study the Bible and they learn. And then we have families that have started groups. There's one in Dixon, and there's another one over in Sterling, and they're different places, and they get together, boys groups and girls groups, and they study and they learn together. And it's just, and as a pastor, it's like it gets to the point where I don't even know what all that's going on, and I'm fine with that. I don't have to have my finger in everything, because God's doing it, and God bless them. They'll give me a report. We'll check in on how things are going, but God's just changing lives, and that's an exciting thing.
Hmm. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, was there some other things that you'd like to share, or something else that came to mind
Well,
as we kind of
Not to put you on the spot, but
hey, were you? Let me ask you this, uh, Tom. Did you go to Geneseo in 1980 for the regional? Did you go to any of those games? Mark's senior year? You can edit this
yes,
out.
I do. Was that against Sterling?
In Sterling, we beat them in double overtime.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments. That was before the 3-point line. Mark would have had so many more, my big brother, if they'd had the 3-point line, because he was in the corner, he was like
Mm-hmm.
Larry Bird, just drilling from the corner. And something I've always used about momentum in life, in ministry, uh, We were down double digits that entire game. And at the end of the third quarter, Mark drained a jumper from the corner, nailed it, and made it 9 points. And as Sterling walked back to the bench, they were looking at the scoreboard. Trudging to the bench, looking at the scoreboard. Rock Falls was, I don't know if we high-fived back then, we might have been slapping hands, but they were running back to the bench, slapping hands, excited, listening to Coach Hubbard. And I saw the momentum go like this. And they won it in double overtime that night in Genesee. And I just sports and life, basketball games, you get a run. Oh, we got to stop that run. We got to get a run going here. And you see that. And that's how it is in ministry sometimes. You get momentum going and you do whatever you can to fuel the momentum to keep growing. And that's why it's important to have that time in the Word and prayer, and so that you're building that spiritual momentum in your own personal lives. Because if you have that, then you'll bring that to church with you. Wherever you go to your local church, you'll bring it to your youth group. You'll bring it to your FCA group, and you'll help fuel that. And as a result, that will affect your friends, your fellow church members, and what have you, and keep things moving and grooving and going in the right direction. And I guess in 40 years of ministry, watching that, seeing the ebbs and flows of how ministry goes, you need to keep good spiritual momentum going.
Well, we appreciate you being on, because one of the things that, Andrew's working hard with, all through the area, and a lot of people within FCA, but hey, let's try a podcast. Let's, like you said, that momentum. Let's see if we can get something out there and use another avenue to do it. So it was awesome having you on. And Andrew, so we got you one more Rock Falls Sterling story in there. And we could go on and recap the whole 99 game, but IHSA does have it on YouTube if anybody's real curious to watch.
Tom hasn't watched it this week yet, so
this week.
I will meet people when a new person comes, like our staff members, when they come, and I have a Rock Falls Rocket corner up here in my office. It has the cereal box.
Yeah.
So Tom's in my office. He's right up here. They have the cereal box with the team on it. And I'll say, they'll say, "What is that?" I go, "That's my Rock Falls corner. What's that team on the box?" And I'll show them the last 3 minutes of the game. And they'll go, "Wow, were you at that?" And oh yeah, I was at that.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we appreciate having Pastor Scott Porter on from Abiding Word Church in this episode, and really appreciate it. Great things going on over there with the youth group and in that area, the Rock River Valley, with FCA as well. And so we appreciate you and all you're doing. And we'll come back with our closing for this episode of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Well, I really enjoyed having Pastor Scott Porter on. Obviously, we have some connections there with Rock Falls and going back a ways and sharing some stories. And I knew we'd get into some of that a little bit, and I always enjoy talking to him. But I also thought the perspective that he can bring as a pastor and as a sports fan, and to kind of continue some of the theme we've had in a few episodes prior, that connection that we have, which is what FCA is based on, was really enjoyable. And I think that hopefully a great perspective that people enjoyed listening to.
Yeah, he shared some amazing stories, both personally and professionally, but just love to hear how God's moving in the Sauk Valley area and hear about their youth group and the explosion of that. And, I know they're not the only one up there. I've talked to other pastors and people in the area, and just really seeing how God's moving there. And we see that with an FCA too. And it's so exciting to see and talk about, and God's really moving. So that's pretty exciting. So thank you to Pastor Scott for sharing with us this week and for joining us. And we'd ask that if you guys would consider liking and subscribing on our YouTube channel and on Spotify, and continue to share this out as we're trying to be able to reach more people. And, maybe that one coach in your life or friend hears something impactful from one of our guests, and, you never know how it can change a life, and impact a life. So we'd appreciate you guys sharing it on if you could, and passing it on. And again, thank you to Scott for coming on and being our guest this week. And we're looking forward to seeing everyone again next week.
Thanks again.
Thanks for watching this episode of Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA. If you have ideas for content or interview suggestions, just reach out to Tom or Andrew. Thanks again for checking out Inside the Huddle with Three Rivers FCA.